Hello and welcome back to today's video. So we're going to just still on Markov chains. We're going to look at classification of state. Okay, yes. So to better understand Markov chains, we need to introduce some definitions. The first definition concerns the accessibility of what of states from each other. If it is possible to go from state I to state J, we say that state J is accessible from state I. If I can move from state I to state J, then we say state J is accessible from state I. This is common grammar. Yeah, sure. So let's look at accessibility. So we say that state J is accessible from state I written as this denotation. It means that there's an arrow, there's a movement, a possible movement from state I to state J. Sure. So let's look at the communication between classes. That is what we are looking at now. So, so two states I and J are accessible, or they are said to communicate if they are accessible from each other. As in, I is accessible from J and J is accessible from what? From I. Yes. So this is the notation we give to it. It means communication happens from both ends. Okay. Yes. So if I J is accessible from I, then it implies that J is also accessible from what? From I. I is accessible from J, sorry. Yes. So that is if and only if the two states communicate. Okay. That is if this condition you are seeing here applies. Okay. Yes. So that means that communication is an equivalent relation. Okay. Good. 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 Yes. And every state communicates with itself. So that is one thing that you need to know. Okay. Yes. So if state I and J communicates, then indirectly state J and I communicate. This is just some commutative property of communication. Okay. Yes. So if state I and J communicate and J and K communicate, then it implies that I state I over here and that of state K communicate as well. Yes. So the state of a Markov chain can be what partitioned into communicating classes, where state I and J are in the same class if and only if they communicate. So states can only be in the same class if only they communicate, right? So let's look at the example 3 that we saw before, this particular example 3, and try to identify the communicating classes. Okay, yes. So let's look at this. You realize that state 1 and 2 communicate. We can move from state 1 to state 2 and state 2 to state 3. Let's look at state 1 and out of state 3. This state 3 is accessible from state 1, but the vice versa is not true. Yes. So that means that once we can find state 1 and 2 communicating, they form a class. So you can say class 1 is what? It contains state 1 and state 2. Okay. If you also look at state 3 and 4, you can clearly see they also communicate, right? But they do not communicate with other classes because if you look at state 8, for instance, state 3 is accessible from state 8, but the vice versa is not true. The same way for state what? 5 and that of 4. Okay, so that means that communication class 2 contains state 3 and state 4, alright? Yes, so state 6, 7, and 8, you realize that they also have their own communicating class. Information is accessible among these three states, okay? So that makes them another communicating class, okay? Let's look at number 5, that is state 5. You realize that state 5 is just alone. So once we have one state that does not communicate with any other state, it becomes a class on its own. So we have class 1 here, we have class 2, class 3, and class 4. So we have 4 communicating classes in this particular example. Yes. So like I said, I've explained everything. That is what this was trying to say or talk about. Okay, these are the classes. So class 1 contains state 1 and 2, class 2 state 3 and 4, class 3 we have state 5, and then class 4 we have state 6, 7, and 8. Alright, good. That's okay. So thank you very much for watching a video on communicating classes and then the accessibility among states. So our next video will be looking at irreducibility of Markov chain, right? So bear in mind, keep all the concepts on accessibility and communication among classes or states in your mind. Stay tuned and thank you very much for watching this video. God bless you. God bless you.